Location information comes in different forms and formats, from geographical coordinates, or longitude and latitude, to addresses and to place names. A common use case when building geospatial apps is to allow users to search for places and convert geographic coordinates into addresses and vice versa, also known as geocoding and reverse geocoding. In this video, you will learn how you can add a location search widget to your web app using Amazon Location Services Places API. We'll build the app using AWS Amplify and Vue.js. We will create, deploy, and manage AWS resources using Amplify CLI, and we will build the app components using Amplify JavaScript and MapLibrary GLJS. The app will have a base map with navigation controls and a location search widget with geocoding, reverse geocoding, and autocomplete support. The first step is to install and configure AWS Amplify. Before you start, create an AWS account if you don't have one, and install Node.js and NPM on your machine. Now, let's install Amplify CLI. Next, we'll configure AWS Amplify. This will create a new IAM user with admin access to our account to provision AWS resources for us. Let's continue the process on the AWS console. We'll first choose a username, then we'll attach a policy called administrator access-amplify to the user, and finally, we'll create the user. Now let's go back to the terminal and enter access key ID and secret access key and create an AWS profile on our machine. The next step is to create a new project. Let's create a new Vue project using Vite. We'll choose a name for the project and select Vue as the framework and the variant. Next, we'll go into our project's root directory and install the dependencies. Then we'll initialize AWS Amplify within our project. We'll choose a name for our project, set the configurations, and select an AWS profile for authentication. Amplify CLI will then initialize our project. Next, we'll install the AWS Amplify library for JavaScript. Then we'll add some code to main.js to configure Amplify within our Vue app. Next, we'll remove the content of app.vue and add a template, a script, and a style section. Finally, we'll add some configuration to vite.config. The next step is to add auth configurations. We need to configure authentication in our app to specify how we want the front-end app access Amazon Location Services APIs. To do that, we'll run amplify add auth. We'll stick with the defaults, but you can choose advanced settings to make changes. This will create an authentication resource powered by Amazon Cognito in our local environment. The next step is to add a map. Amplify Geo is a new addition to the Amplify family. It provides APIs and UI components that enable developers to add location functionality such as maps and place search to their web and mobile apps. Now, let's add a map. First, we'll create a map resource using Amplify CLI. To do that, we'll run amplify add geo. We'll choose map as the capability that we want to add. We'll pick a name, and we allow authorized and guest users to access this map. This will create a map resource in our local environment. Next, we'll push the changes to AWS. It may take a few minutes for the changes to deploy. Once it's done, you'll have your authentication and map resources set up and ready to use. Now, let's render the map we just created. First, we'll install MapLibrary GLJS Amplify, which is a plugin for MapLibrary GLJS that makes it easy to integrate with Amplify Geo. Then, we'll open up app.vue and add a div container for the map. Next, we'll add a new map instance with navigation controls. Finally, we'll add some CSS to produce a full screen map. Now, if you run npm run dev in your terminal and go to localhost 3000 in your browser, you'll see an interactive map on the page. The next step is to add a location search widget. First, we need to create a location search resource using Amplify CLI. To do that, we'll run amplify add geo. We'll choose location search as the capability that we want to add. We'll pick a name, and we allow authorized and guest users to access this search index. This will create the backend resources for our project in our local environment. Next, let's push the changes to AWS. It may take a few minutes for the changes to deploy. Once it's done, you'll have a location search resource set up and ready to use. Now, let's add a location search UI component to our map. First, we'll import create amplify geocoder into our app.vue. This will create an instance of MapLibre GL geocoder with some predefined settings. Next, we'll add a new map control for the location search component. Finally, we'll import a CSS file into our app to assign the location search component. Now, if you save your project and go to your browser, you will see a location search widget on the map. The last step is to add some customizations. The Amplify Geo's location search widget supports customization through a number of options. For this project, we'll use autocomplete, countries, and language. This will enable autocomplete and limit the search results to English and within Canada. We'll also add some UI customizations. We'll use a custom icon for markers and add pop-ups to markers. Download the SVG icon from this repository and put it in the assets directory. Then we'll import the new icon in app.view, create a new icon instance, and add a few properties to create Amplify geocoder function. Finally, we'll add some CSS to customize the style of the location search widget. Now, if you save your project and go to your browser, you will see the final result. You can search for addresses, place names, and geographic coordinates using the location search widget. You can use this project as a starting point for building apps with maps and search functionality and customize it for your project. For example, you can include a few map styles, expose some search options, or adjust the style of map controls to match your brand. That's it for this video. I hope you learned something from it. I also wrote a blog on this topic. Check it out and let me know if you have any questions or comments. Until next time.